All right, this is SSL Family Dad with Simple Sustainable Living here with Kayla, and today we're going to show you how this box has changed our life. Alright, so quite a few years ago, back at the old suburban homestead, we started really learning about processed foods and how they really weren't healthy for us. And back then we ate a lot of processed foods, a lot of frozen foods, canned foods, and just anything that came in a box or bag that was easy to make. We were both working, it was a busy time in our life, and we were really starting to learn about how bad those things were for us. And there was also a time when our income had changed quite drastically, and so we wanted to find ways to cut costs and make things ourselves. That's really what started this whole sustainable living journey for us. One of the first things that we started doing was making our own bread. I bought this bread maker for the SSL Family Mom years ago, and it's been one of the greatest purchases that we've ever made. Now I went kind of high end with this one when I bought this for her, and but since then we've learned that you can actually get these for about $5 or $10. Just about every time we go to Goodwill or any of the resale shops, Salvation Armies, things like that, there are sometimes 10 or 15 of these things sitting on shelves in there. They're just one of those things that kitchen gadgets I think people buy and they think they're gonna make bread and then they just don't, and it sits in the basement and then they give it away. But we use this thing for not just making bread, but what other things we make?
Dough for pizza and dough for tortilla shells.
Yep, it has a dough setting on it where you can pretty much just throw the ingredients in this thing and make any kind of dough. So bagels, donuts, pizzas, and tortillas are the things that we use this to make dough for the most often. But really we use this thing almost every day to make a loaf of bread. It's so easy to do. You practically just throw the ingredients in. Well, you do. You throw the ingredients in, you just press the start button. I mean, it's easy. So let me take you through making a loaf of bread and show you how easy it is and how beautiful it turns out. All right, so I've memorized this recipe because I do this just about every morning, but the recipe is very easy. You start with yeast, and we use this Red Star dry active yeast. We don't use those little instant yeast packages. You can get this in like a 5-pound bag on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description, and we just separate it into Ziploc bags and then freeze it, and then we just put one bag in the refrigerator as we use it. So this yeast is super cheap that way, and it keeps for just practically forever. It takes 3 cups of flour, a tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon or so of salt, about a tablespoon and a half of butter. The original recipe actually calls for dry milk, but since dry milk is kind of expensive and we never have that on hand because who has dry milk, we just have substituted all of the water from the recipe with regular milk. So it just makes it really easy. About 340, 350 milliliters of milk, and that makes a very moist bread. One 3/4 teaspoons of yeast. So 3 cups of flour, 1.5 tablespoons of butter, a little bit of salt, about a tablespoon of sugar, just add the bucket back into the bread machine, close it, and then I have this memorized, but start. And that's it. It takes about 1 hour and 55 minutes, and it makes the dough, it lets it rise, it bakes it, and you pull out a completed loaf of bread. All right, girls, fresh bread.
Oh, yeah. good. No.
Man, that is some good homemade bread. And this is something that, like I said, we make pretty much every day. We use it for sandwiches, we use it for cooking, we use it for everything. Now I know there are a lot healthier recipes for bread. There are lots of multi-grain and whole grain wheats. There are lots of einkorn flours and rice flours and other coconut flours and things like that you can make bread out of that are more healthy, and we've experimented and use those sometimes as well. But for general everyday stuff, we usually just go for the white bread. So this thing really has changed how we live our life here and how we cook meals, what we cook. We do so many homemade meals from just using the homemade bread and pizza dough and stuff like that. Pizza is almost a regular thing around here, and we make all the dough in there. It's just such a handy thing to have, especially just for making dough. So anytime you need to make dough for anything, you can just throw it in there and it does it for you, which is really nice. There's no kneading, no waiting, all that stuff just handles it. So it has more uses than just making bread, which is nice. But check out your local resale shops, Goodwills, Salvation Armies, whatever you have around you, and I guarantee you that they will have bread makers, and they'll have all kinds of them there, usually for less than 10 bucks. So hopefully this inspires somebody to make some homemade bread, and as always guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.